Hello and welcome to this lesson on the past tense, or the preterito as they say in Spanish. The past tense, the preterito, is really important in Spanish, especially for your GCSE, when you're looking to be able to talk about what you've done. Typical thing about talking about holidays or the past weekend and things like that. So let's have a look to start with about its uses. So the first one, we're looking at completed actions in the past. Very simple things like I went, I drank, I ate, I played, them sorts of things. Things that are totally completed. Also, often actions with a time frame. So we'll look at things like last week. So we could link these together. Last week I went, yesterday I drank, 3 years ago I played. Okay, so that's the uses. Let's move on now to talk about regular verbs. So these are the AR verbs. Remember, we say that there's more AR verbs than any other infinitive sentence. So the example I'm going to use is escuchar, to listen. We've got the different persons of the verb here set up in singular and plural. So the I, you, he and she are the singular, and then we, you plural, and they as the plurals. So first thing you need to do, take off the AR of the escuchar. Okay, so there it goes, and set up all the different stems. The stems are here on the left, on the singular, and on the plural. So once we've got this stem then, all we need to do now is start to add our endings in both different ways. Okay, so the first one then, escuchar. Okay, we've taken the ending off, it becomes escuché, which means I listened. Next one, escuchaste. And this is one you've got to listen to when you listen for questions. So escuchaste, did you listen? ¿Qué escuchaste? What did you listen to? Okay, next one, and this confuses us because of the accent. It looks very similar to the present tense, but just with the accent different. So, escuchó, he or she listened. Okay, next one is exactly the same as the present tense. Escuchamos, we listened. So the way that we're going to be able to differentiate is through context. Things like ayer, yesterday, ayer escuchamos. El año pasado, escuchamos. Next one is escuchasteis. It's very similar to the aste. So aste and asteis for the question ones. And then finally arron. So escucharon for the they. Okay, so that's the AR verbs done. Next up are the ER and IR verbs. Now, luckily, these are both exactly the same. I'm just going to give you one example of an ER verb, and obviously we can adapt it the same way. So here we go then. Comer significa to eat. We do exactly the same thing then. Just as the caption tells us, take off the IR or the ER. So there it goes. And we end up with our stem, com. Okay, so I've got coms on both sides. Remember, the person and the verb are never going to change. And then we're ready to put our endings in. So, add endings here, add endings there. So, com, the first little bit, comí, I ate. Comiste, so before we had aste, so we've got iste here. So comí, comiste, comió. And then on the plural side, comimos, which we'd sort of expect. Comisteis, comieron. So nice and simple, pretty similar to the ARs, just with the E's and the I's instead. Okay, so that's the regular ones done and dusted. Let's move on to irregular verbs. I've called these one pattern verbs because these are the ones where we can use a pattern to be able to form some of these. Okay, for this one I'm going to use hacer as a model. So, have a look at this verb then. Some of you might have seen, we've done hizo before when we did weather. So, we've got hacer as the model and looking at the endings. So I'm just going to go through. We've got hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron. Okay, and all we're going to do is look to try and use these endings, exactly the same endings, and apply them to some irregular stems. I want you to think about it as stems. So the first one then, we've got this list of stems. So the first one we've got tube. Have a think where it might have come from. All we do is we add the ending, so we've got tube, which means I had, because it comes from tener. So the irregular bit is the fact that it doesn't look anything like tener, so we need to know that tube is from tener, at the end is the same. So tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvisteis, tuvieron, etc. Works exactly the same with the next one. Pude, I could. Estuve, I was. Anduve, I walked. Puse, I put. Supe, I knew. Finally, quise, I wanted. Okay, so really important. Use the same endings. You can mix and match, but just make sure these endings for the hacer are used across with these irregular stems. And you do have to just start to learn some of these things. One final tip is this. No accents on the irregulars. So you'll never see an accent on an irregular verb. Next up then, we're going to look at irregular verbs car and gar. Okay, so these are the verb infinitives that end car and gar. So we've got an example of llegar, to arrive, tocar, to play an instrument. So have a look at this one then. So gar verbs change only in the first person to ge, whereas car verbs are going to change only in the first person to que. Quick example, llegué, I arrived. Whereas when it goes to the next person, llegaste, no problems. Just exactly the same as normal. Tocar then, we've got tocar becomes toqué, I played. And then the last bit, tocaste as normal, and it moves down. Okay, so be aware of them. Got a few more here that you can use. Things like pagar, jugar, pegar, plegar, and then sacar, pescar, buscar, acercar. Okay, so lots of verbs there we can use in the past. Finally, totally irregular verbs. These are the ones that we're just going to have to learn. And here we go then. Ir and ser, really interesting. Ir and ser are exactly the same. So, to go or to be in Spanish in the past, fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuistes, fueron. May well have done that before. And then dar is a bit funny because you think about it as an AR verb, but it actually has the other endings on it. So it's di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron. And as it says at the bottom, learn these off by heart because you can't pattern them properly. Okay, so that's it then. Hope you've found this useful. We'll continue to have a look at this if you're ever stuck with the past tense. So important. Thank you.